Well, sources tell CNN that the U.S. military is moving to protect its assets in the Middle East region, evacuating non-sheltered planes from its base in Qatar, moving ships in Bahrain, and getting additional blood supplies. Let's bring in CNN's senior military analyst, retired Admiral James Stavridis. He's a former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. Great to have you on. We heard from Brian there in terms of the MOP bomb, the bunker buster bomb here, that is in really the focus of all discussion, and whether or not Donald Trump will use this weapon that is uniquely in America's hands. Yes, it has not been tested in a combat situation, but according to Axios's Barak Ravid, he spoke to a former U.S. official who told him that this bunker buster was tested twice by the U.S. military in 2024 and went on to say, quote, "It will work." Give us your take on the accuracy of this weapon and whether you agree with that assessment that it will work in this scenario.
First, there are no certainties in war, and there are so many different factors that could come into play. My overall assessment is that this would have a high likelihood of working, particularly if employed the way Brian talked about in that excellent segment of go in first, lay down an initial round or even two, create the crater, then go in on top of the crater. I think accuracy is not the problem. Accuracy of this weapon will be sufficient. The question is quite simple. The density of the granite, of the concrete, what defensive shoring has been put in place. Are you going to need to hit the target twice, thrice, even 4 times? But we have sufficient inventory. We have a lot of these B-2 bombers, I think 20 of them roughly. One is inoperative at the moment. But that capability is there, and I suspect the president pushed the military advisors, General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Kurilla, the head of Central Command, very hard on that exact point. My guess is that they will have said to him, Mr. President, we have confidence this will be a successful mission.
And just in terms of how Iran will retaliate once these bunker buster bombs are used, I mean, obviously they will have to retaliate in some way, shape or form. A lot of people have been talking about U.S. military assets in the region possibly being threatened as a result. But even beyond that, I mean, beyond the sort of obvious U.S. military targets in the region, how else could Iran retaliate?
3 things come immediately to mind. The first and most concerning in economic terms would be if they chose to close the Strait of Hormuz. 20 to 25% of the world's energy flows through it. They could close it, at least for a period of months, by sinking old merchant ships, creating blockade conditions in the strait itself. They could also put mines in the water, which would require mine clearance by the coalition navies. So that would be one real concern. Secondly, cyber. Iran has a fairly good cyber capability, not as good as Israel, not as good as the US or China or Russia, but probably in the top 5, maybe the top 10. So they could attempt some kind of cyber attacks against US forces. And then third, targeted assassinations that I think would probably not go against hardened military sites, but go after, for example, American business people who are moving about Dubai, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. All of these regions, I think, are potential targets. There's 3 acts of significant damage that the Iranians could undertake, in addition to where we started the conversation, the idea of them going after U.S. military bases with their ballistic missiles.
Do you see a scenario where it's an in and out, one and done type of, or 1 or 2 or 3, however many bombs are needed, but do you you see a scenario where the sole mission here for the United States is to drop those bombs on Fordo and get out? Or do you envision a scenario where once the U.S. is in, they stay in for a significant period of time, given the repercussions from Iran that are expected?
Yeah, unfortunately, history generally shows us that when we decide we're going to do a one and done kind of mission, and we do it, and then in this case, the Iranians retaliate, well, what's our response when American businessmen are shot down in the streets of Dubai, when the Strait of Hormuz is closed, when there's a massive cyber attack? What do? We're going to retaliate. We're going to escalate. We're going to escalate vertically. We're going to increase military option and provide the president even more reasons and capabilities to respond. And then the two sides typically get into an upward spiral of violence. So as much as it's attractive to think, yep, we'll just zip in there, take out the nuclear site, and then nothing bad will happen after that, I think it's pretty unlikely. I'll close with this. When you start a war, and that would be an act of war by the United States against the Islamic Republic of Iran, when you start a war, it's like kicking open a door into a really dark room. You don't know exactly what's in there.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with one Israeli journalist who said Israel may have started this war, but it will take the United States to finish it one way or the other way, whether it's militarily or if there is an opportunity still here for diplomacy. CNN senior military analyst James Stavridis, thank you.